Welcome to Fostering Solutions, a podcast that uplifts people and enterprises making positive impact in communities around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Foster. Okay, my guest today is Justin Clark. He's one of the special guests on the Maximizing with Michelle series. How are you doing, Justin?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So tell the audience about yourself. Who is Justin Clark?
Yeah, I think about that question a lot, and I want to have this deeply philosophical answer of like, who really are any of us, right? But no, I'm Justin. I'm a North Carolina native, a father of two rambunctious little boys. They're 6 and 4. I have the joy of getting the chance to serve the people of Charleston. This is the year 3 since we uprooted and came to Charleston.
Okay.
When I'm not doing hanging out with my kids or working, you can find me in the kitchen coming up with the perfect biscuit recipe or trying to find my next baking adventure. So yeah.
Sounds like fun. So were you recruited specifically for your job, or did you move and then, because you've only been here 3 years?
Yeah.
So what prompted you to make that move?
Yeah, so I've been with Boys and Girls Clubs since 2014.
Okay.
Was with clubs in Tennessee as a program director, then a unit director, and then was ready to move forward in my career. And found the job in West Virginia. Didn't know anything about West Virginia. Hadn't even had it on my radar. Mm-hmm. And went through that process and came and interviewed. And my wife and I very quickly fell in love with Charleston. And so we moved here for the job.
Wonderful. So are you happy you moved? Or?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. It's been an incredible place for our boys, and it's been a great location for us. The people have been fantastic, mm-hmm. and there's such an opportunity for impact here, and so we're grateful to have the chance to be here.
Yeah, I moved here 30 years ago, and I can say amen to all of that.
Yeah,
West Virginia has some of the best people you'll find, and you feel like you can make an impact here. I think we're small enough that if you feel like you can make a difference. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the pepperoni rolls help.
And all the other stuff. Right? Yes. So you are the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club. So talk about, and you kind of really mentioned some of that journey you've been with them. Was that right out of school in 2014, or did you have another career prior to joining Boys and Girls Club?
So I have a very roundabout life story. I actually failed out of college, and I'm
sure you're not the first. You will not be the last.
And things in my life had just gotten really crazy, and so I sold everything I owned and moved to Romania. And
oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Worked at an orphanage in Romania for a year. And came back and wanted to do something different. Didn't know what that was, but moved into a friend's basement in Northeast Tennessee and was driving around this little town called Elizabethton one day. And the Boys and Girls Club had a now hiring sign out front.
Oh, wow.
I had never gone to the Boys and Girls Club, never done anything with them. And walked in the door and met my now mentor, Jenny Wright, and fell in love with the club movement. And now they say we say we bleed blue for Boys and Girls Club Blue, and so have been with them ever since.
Okay. So what keeps you in this work? What keeps you in this sector working with young men and women?
Well, the ability to get wealthy in the nonprofit world is absolutely
oh yeah, right.
the driving force.
Good luck with that.
No, not at all. I really, and it goes back to what we said at the beginning, I really feel like that clubs and the age groups and the families that clubs are serving, there's such an incredible potential for impact. And not just short-term impact, but for generational impact and generational change. And it's just so rewarding. It's not instant gratification, right? That's a hard part. But I've been in the clubs long enough now that I get phone calls from a kid that says, "Hey, Mr. Justin, I just graduated college," or "Hey, Mr. Justin, I'm getting married," or "I made the football team for high school." And so it's getting to see that impact that keeps me coming back.
Absolutely. So this series is about maximizing impact. So what does that term mean? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Without reusing the word maximizing, right? I think it means leveraging every resource that we have, whether that's as an individual or as an organization, as a business, leveraging every resource that we have to make the most impact. And that's, again, the impact for the individual, the impact for the family, and ultimately, with the work that we do, the impact for a community. And so doing whatever it takes and doing whatever we can to meet that goal.
Okay. So you were the first person. I released my book, Baby, on February 23rd of 2023. And you were the first person to order my book. And I was just like, oh my gosh, somebody actually bought my book. It's called Success Strategy, maximizing impact, success strategies for dynamic nonprofits. So what chapter of the book really resonated with you?
Yeah, and I brought it with me so I could refer back to the actual chapter. But there, it was, I want to say 16 and 17 or 16 and 17. So role models and mentors, and then the self-care piece. Self-care because, I, over the last year, have been, really for the last 3 years, since right before I moved to West Virginia, I've been back in college full time, and then completed my full master's program in 9 months. So I was,
oh my gosh,
it was a lot.
That's
a
record.
It was a push. It was a push.
Yes.
And I couldn't have done it without my wife, taking one for the team. But that self-care piece is just so important. So when this book came out, I was in the middle of my final semester of grad school, writing term papers, staying up until 1 and 2 in the morning, trying to do that while trying to lead my organization well and care for my family well. So that chapter in particular really jumped out at me. And then lesson 5 in your chapter on role models, you say we need a vision to see beyond our current circumstances. And I think in the work that we do and in the world we live in right now, it's so easy to get bogged down in what's right in front of us. And to say like, well, our kids had a really hard day today. What we're doing isn't making a difference. Or whatever, your context is. And having that vision of why are we here? What are we called to do? What were we put here to do? I think is the key motivation to get out of bed every morning and go back to the work the next day. So about, you ask about the main takeaway. That was a huge one for me because I think that sets the tone for everything else. Right? Your vision for what you're doing sets the tone for the financial procedures. It sets the tone for the strategic planning. It sets the tone for board development. And so I think that was it was a good reminder for me to not get bogged down in the here and now.
Yes, and not be overwhelmed because it can be overwhelming when you're running. When you are the leader of the organization, it all falls on you. You know what I mean? So it can get overwhelming if you let it. Yeah. So talk about the programs that you have at Boys and Girls Clubs, and which ones do you think are most impactful?
Yeah. The thing I think about in terms of impact, again, it's not an instant gratification thing, right? So some of the immediate impact is hard to quantify. But I think that our literacy focus and our prioritization of literacy since COVID is when we're seeing some really great short-term impact and short-term gains. So we've partnered with the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation and the Wheeling Country Day School, and we're providing I think we're up to 40 kids now with targeted and individualized literacy tutoring. They get that 2 times a day or 2 times a week during the school year, but they're getting it 4 times a week during the summer program, and really trying to hit that summer learning loss. And so we just got some progress reports and updates from schools, and we have kids that have moved from C's and D's to A's and B's.
It's amazing.
We're seeing increased confidence. We're seeing increased interest in those kids going on the library field trips or taking books home from the club. So I think that program is something that we're really proud of and something that has impact.
Right. And you can measure the impact.
Yes.
So it's always great. Yeah.
And then this is our first year since COVID that both of our club sites in Charleston and St. Albans are open for the summer. And I think that summer programming time is so important because we have kids that there's nowhere else for them to go.
And it's safe.
And
for
it's
them
safe.
Yes.
And so we're open 50 hours a week. And so our parents are able to go to work. They can drop their kids off. Their kids get fed. They go on field trips. We continue to prioritize academic success, and we have so much fun. We have so much fun. And this summer, we're doing everything from gardening to going to tour the Mothman Museum. We try to give kids a variety of experiences, but I think that one has impact. One, from that safe place, but two, with our efforts to kind of attack summer learning loss and help mitigate that.
So you've got the 2 sites. So how many children do you serve per year? And how large is your team?
Yeah, so when I got here, the clubs have been closed for 15 months. It's in-person programming. And so we reopened Charleston really quickly and then reopened St. Albans. And so the last 2 years have really been let's grow and let's get the doors open.
Right.
So in our last program year, we served a little over 300 kids total, about 50 to 60 a day between the 2 sites. Our St. Albans site since the beginning of this school year, because our year runs October to September.
Okay, like the federal fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're about to come up on our reporting for this year, but St. Albans has doubled their average daily attendance. They've doubled the number of kids that are registered members. So to answer your question, this is a roundabout way. To answer your question, we are on track to serve, I want to say, a little over 400 kids this year.
That's amazing.
And anticipate being back at our pre-COVID capacity when the school year starts. We have 2 full-time club directors, one for each site. We just hired an education coordinator that's going to share responsibilities with the 2 clubs. And then our youth development professionals, our direct program staff. For the summer right now, we have 13, I believe. And then the school year the hope is to have 12. So 6 at each club site.
Okay. Yeah, it's a major operation there.
Yeah. It's an adventure. But when you have the right people and the right seats on the bus, it makes a difference.
It does.
For sure.
It sure does. So what strategy, and you may have already mentioned this, but if you want to expound, what strategies have you used to maximize impact?
We try to do, for our staff and for our community partners, we try to leverage storytelling because that, in my experience, that helps to drive stakeholder engagement. And so that's, storytelling of the successes, storytelling of the challenges that we're facing, I think would be a critical one. We have tried to be more intentional in engaging with the families of the kids that we serve, so that we're not just an after-school program. We're meeting the needs of the family.
Right.
And so that comes in the form of providing financial education classes for parents, or we're working on a nutrition program where we're going to be able to bring families in and help them meal plan and meal prep together, so that we're seeing that impact at home too. And then it's just, in our context, it's going out and finding the resources so that we can serve more kids more often. And I think a big piece for us that we've seen expand our impact is the board development piece and that community advocacy piece that the board does. When I got here, we had 4 members, and they were tired. They'd been doing it for years, and through them and through the revitalization of our programs, we've grown to a team of 12, and they're incredible. And they've bought in, and they are out helping to advocate in the community, and helping us identify resources that already exist that we can either partner with or point our families to. Because the last thing we want to do is duplicate.
That's right. That's right.
I feel like that limits our impact. If we're all doing the same thing, I feel like we're limiting the impact we can have.
So what's your connection to the national is there like a national Boys and Girls Club that you are connected to as a local club, or like what is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so Boys and Girls Clubs of America, it's a federated model. So each club organization operates independently of, I call it the mothership of BGCA. But there are, we just opened our 5,000th club earlier this year. And so they're governed independently, but we also all collaborate. And then the national office provides us with programming. So they have a program development team that ensures that small clubs in Charleston, West Virginia, have access to the same evidence-based programming of clubs in DC and in Los Angeles. They also help drive our safety policies and procedures. So we get an annual safety audit and things like that from BGCA, and the leadership development pieces that they provide are incredible. So, coming up in October, I get to send our St. Albans director to St. Louis for the Club Directors Academy, and he gets to network with other club directors from across the country that are in his same role from a variety of clubs. And so the cohesion that can come from that and the energy that comes from that for him, I think it is great. But yeah, so we are we're all a big happy movement is what they call BGCA. And the headquarters really drives, again, just program delivery, impact, and then being a great resource for us for safety and any other issues that we're confronting in our local area.
Right. So how long has the local program been around, the one in Charleston?
So the Charleston Club opened in 1965.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're coming up on our 60th anniversary in 2 years. And then the St. Albans Club started much later. St. Albans Club, I believe, I don't have that date as handy. I want to say it was like 2012, 2013.
Okay, so fairly new.
Is when the St. Albans Club opened.
Okay. So now you've been with Boys and Girls Clubs for 9 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Self-care is a huge thing. I've learned a lot at the clubs about what it means to be a leader. When I came into clubs the first time, I was hired to work with the teens. And I came in and I was like, I'm going to change the world, right? Because this club didn't know what they were doing until I got here. I was 22, 23 when I started. And, I thought I was God's gift to the Boys and Girls Club movement. So I wish that I knew the humility that it takes to lead effectively. I think I would have saved myself some headaches and some hurdles if I knew that coming in. And I wish on the front end that I had been better equipped to drive the collaboration process that really defines the impact that organizations can have. I was, young and was going to take charge and thought that we could do it alone, thought that I could do it by myself and our club could do it by ourselves. And I feel like we missed some opportunities there in the beginning because I had to learn that it really does take a community of stakeholders to make impact.
Absolutely. So what, as you reflect on your career, what aspects of your work are you most proud of?
I'm really proud of the work we're doing in Charleston with getting the clubs reopened post-COVID. That was a long shutdown for the clubs here. And so getting the clubs both reopened and operating, I'm very proud of that. On a personal development piece, I'm proud that as a first-generation college student, I just finished my master's with high distinction.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That is awesome.
I got an A- in statistics, so I finished with a 3.97.
Oh, wow.
I wanted that 4.0, but I took what I could get.
That's okay. That's excellent.
So thank you. I'm really proud of that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to show my boys that example. So the Charleston Club, and I'm proud from my time back in Tennessee. The club that I came to was in a period of transition. It was in a period of, really just a total turnover of staffing. And I was hired in January of 2019. And by January of 2020, we had doubled our attendance. So we were seeing almost 175 kids a day.
Wow.
And we had this great upward momentum. And then the world shut down.
Then the world changed.
And we had to pivot.
The world changed, yeah.
But we didn't shut down during COVID. We pivoted to be a virtual learning hub, and we're able to continue to serve kids and families through the pandemic.
I'm sure that was very important, for the families, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't take the credit for that. We had an incredible team, but I'm proud to have been a part of that at that critical time for our families.
Yes, that's awesome. What a rough time, my goodness. So when you think about taking your program to the next level, you mentioned the resources from, Boys and Girls Club of America, and so what other resources would you need to really take your program to the next level?
Yeah, the clubs in Charleston are in a unique position because we have the resources of the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, but we also operate as a program of the Salvation Army, and so we bring to bear the resources of the Salvation Army, which we're very fortunate to have. I think as we look to the future, we have to continue to do, and it goes back to what we talked about. We have to continue to do the work to build collaborative relationships across our communities. That's with service providers, that's with other organizations, but that's with our community too. And so what does it look like to build relationships in our neighborhood on the west side where our Charleston Club is, or right off of Main Street, St. Albans, where the St. Albans Club is? What does that look like? I think that's going to be critical because it's not my program. It's not the advisory board's program. It's this community has to decide, do we want a Boys and Girls Club? Do we need a Boys and Girls Club? And do we think that it's effective? And if so, it takes the community to make sure we're doing the most and maximizing the impact that we can have.
There you go.
Obviously, financial resources are always a thing, and I think as we come out more so out of COVID, and we're seeing the way that our families are struggling, and we're seeing the way that government funding that we all relied on for so long in terms of charitable support, we're going to have to rethink the way that we steward the dollars that we have and the way that we cultivate those relationships with donors and with partners.
Because it's going to take really diversifying your funding, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And, we're in the position of we want to ensure sustainability and ensure that we can operate, but not building that program on the backs of the families that we're serving, right? And recognizing our families are struggling more than they were 2 years ago. So how do we lower the investment that we're asking for from our families, increase the investment by our community and by other stakeholders, so that we can serve the kids who need us the most. Right. We have a policy and a practice for us that we'll never turn a kid away. I have families this summer that are paying us $1 a day for their kid to be there because that's what they can do. But I think that's going to be a critical conversation to have as we move forward and as we grow.
So what would you tell someone who's thinking of starting or just learning more about a nonprofit program similar to yours, whether it's a Boys and Girls Club, but just that whole space of working with youth? What advice would you give to them?
Run. I think that, and again, we said this earlier, before deciding to jump in, before deciding this is what I'm going to do, I think it's important to look at the work that's already being done around you, and is there a space that already exists where you can jump in and help expand impact, rather than duplicating what's already there. Right. I think that's important. And that lesson that I learned in the beginning, that collaboration is key. So if you look at the community and determine, hey, there is a need that's not being met, who can we collaborate with to meet that need? But also not coming into a space like youth work and saying, this is what this group needs. This is what the solution is. Right. I think it takes listening to the community that you're wanting to serve, listening to the community you're hoping to have an impact in, and the space you want to have impact in, and letting their story and letting their reality drive what impact is going to look like. Because you may have one idea that you're going to come in and you're going to get every kid to have an A+ in statistics, so they don't get a 3.97. But what that community needs is something completely different. Right. And so I think that's important. And then remembering that it is not instant gratification. I've been in Boys and Girls Clubs for 9 years. I've never had a kid walk up to me and say, Mr. Justin, can you develop my character today? Right? Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. But again, now 7, 8, 9 years down the road, you can see it. You get to see it. But we live in such a movie trailer world where we want everything right now. And that's just not what the space
It'll take some investment of time and talent.
Yeah.
And, resources to really get them there.
And tears.
And disappointment.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly a marathon and not a sprint.
Absolutely.
It is not. So as you're working with our youth, you're really, developing them into, great adults. As you look to the future, what gives you hope in the midst of it all?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds cliche to say our kids, but our kids are what give me hope. When I come out of my office and walk out onto the playground and I see the way that our kids interact, the way that they don't see class, they don't see histories, they don't see an ACE score or whatever the reality is. They see a person. They see another human. and they see the innate worth that person has. And so I think as we see younger people come into positions of influence, I have hope that we'll see increased respect for one another. And I think too, especially post-COVID, so our younger kids, they have a desire to communicate and to connect because they spent those formative years disconnected. I don't know if you've ever tried to sit a group of brand new kindergartners down and tell them to type in their password. They don't know how to read, but we're gonna have them type in their password. They spent those formative years disconnected, and so I see in the kids we're serving this drive for connection, this drive for relationship, and it makes me hopeful that we will see that collaboration and we will see that unity and that willingness to get in the trenches together.
To work together.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Anything else that you want to share with the audience? Any special announcements about Boys and Girls Clubs or anything you'd like to share as we wrap up?
Yeah. We do have our signature fundraiser coming up on August 29th at the West Virginia Culture Center. And it's going to be a night where we get to celebrate the work that our kids have done over the last year, share stories of impact, share some hopes for the future. So very excited about that. It's the first time we've done it in Charleston. And I think the other big thing we have coming up is July the 10th, we open school year registration. And it seems crazy that it's already July.
Like that's not even 2 weeks.
No. And I feel like we just started the summer.
I know. Time is flying by.
Yeah. And so we will be opening that school year registration. And I would also just like to give, an open invitation to folks that are listening. We would love to have you come to the club and invest in the way that you want. We have folks that come in and read to our kids. We have folks that come in and teach our kids how to use sewing machines. We bought these sewing machines. I don't know how to use a sewing machine. Don't tell my grandmother. But, and we have folks that come in and have taught our kids how to paint, have taught our kids how to change their oil in their car. What is it that you bring to the table and you're excited about that you want to come and give back to our kids? So we'd love to have anybody who's interested in that reach out to us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Justin. It's been a pleasure having you on my series, and I look forward to the great things I know you're going to continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.